Keaton Nkrumah, founder and president of Young Fathers of Central Florida. For those people who are not familiar, we are an organization that provides services to teen and young fathers up to the age of 24. We have various programs. We have a dad-to-dad mentoring program where we match an older father with a younger father for a 1-year commitment. We also do group mentoring. We have a Teen Fatherhood Academy program, which is a 6-month, 6-module program for fathers the age of 14 to 19. We have a parent training program, father support group, and we have our Gents to Gentlemen program, which is an etiquette and character development program for 9 to 13-year-old boys. This is our 8th annual Father's Week. We provide activities and programs throughout the week. Last night was Responsible Fatherhood. We had this room open, and we had a roundtable discussion centered around black male achievement and responsible fatherhood. Tonight is child support and family law, father's rights. We have Maribeth Gonzalez, and we have Judge Bob Evans.
Right.
Yes.
Like the restaurant.
Yes. That's right. It is a restaurant.
Right, like the restaurant.
That's easy to remember. Tomorrow night we have mentoring here as well. Thursday we have literacy and education at Jackson Community Center in Holden Heights. And then Friday we have our employment and entrepreneur night. That's going to be at the J.R. Smith Center. Saturday we're going to have, now out here is a pool party, and not just a carnival for the kids, but we're incorporating it with a pool party as well at Jackson Community Center. All the events throughout the week are free for all families. Then we have a Father's Day dinner. That's not free. You can go on our website and see and read about what's going on at that Father's Day dinner. This is our 8th year doing it. Okay? And that's Charles Morse back there on the camera. So this is your night to ask questions. And I tell people, I get father's rights, child support questions every day. Now they'll call me, get information, come to the office, but they won't come here where we have a judge and an attorney. So that's how seriously that they're taking it. Some people are afraid to come here to talk. A lot of people say, oh, I don't want to go there and get embarrassed. What are you getting embarrassed for? You're getting your questions answered. Okay, so this is your night. I don't know how you guys want to do this. Speak first.
I'm just going to introduce myself. So I usually, I'm a guest speaker at the Young Fathers right, and I thought this year would be a good thing to have Judge Evans speak.
Okay.
And have his experience, you'll get the best of his experience and knowledge from being on the bench for over 20 years as a family law judge for Orange County. So he would be the best person to have, if you have any questions to ask today. So this is a great opportunity. So without further ado, I would like Judge Evans to introduce himself.
How are you? I'm Bob Evans. I grew up in Orlando. Went into the Marine Corps at the end of Vietnam. Spent a fun-filled 4 years in the Marine Corps. Used the GI Bill to go to law school. And I like to call it the Florida State University. And went on, eventually to become a judge, spent 20 years as a judge. I just retired, 20 years as a circuit judge in Orange and Osceola counties. The last 10 years of which I spent on the family bench. And I was the administrative judge for all the family divisions. In addition, I had 2 tours as on the children and families in the court for the Supreme Court. And I was the chairman of the Child Support Subcommittee. So, just for whatever reason, it's an area I fell into and I have some familiarity with. And I thought I'd start with, just briefly, because we have a small crowd, be better off answering your questions, but talking about some of the most common mistakes that I see young fathers make. Okay? And the most common young father mistake I see is they come in and they don't understand, if you're not married to the mother of your child when she has that child, you're not the legal father until a paternity judgment is signed. I mean, I'd have him come in and say, you know, I'm on the birth certificate, so, you know, I've been paying support. So, you know, all of those things create presumptions in your favor, and they're good things. But a paternity judgment is ultimately what needs to be done. I would say, in my lifetime, I've seen sort of this phenomenon where people don't generally get married anymore. I get it. You know, not everyone, and not a lot of people get married for whatever reason. But it shouldn't stop you from getting a paternity judgment. And the best time to get a paternity judgment is when you're still on good relations with the mother of your child. Because then it's easy. You just pay the filing fee, you go down, and in, you know, fairly short or in less than a month, you get a hearing and you get a final judgment of paternity, particularly if you're living together, and then you have it. So then if you break up in the future, you have some rights. Because what happens is people wait until after they break up. Then, well, I want to see my child. Heck with you, you're not seeing him. Then you got to go to court. Now everything becomes hard, you know. Whereas before, yeah, I agree, he's the father. Now you got mom going, well, I don't know, maybe he's not the father. So then you got to wait. Then you got to get a hearing. Then you got to get an order for a paternity test. Then you get the paternity test. You do all that. You don't need paternity tests if everyone agrees on who the father is. So my first piece of advice is everyone needs to get a paternity judgment, even if you're on good terms with mom. It's just something you should do. The second biggest mistake I see young fathers make is when there's a child support order. Child support orders and child support order existing, and the circumstances change, like they lose their job or something happens, and they don't file a petition for the modification of child support. Because the law is, I can't go back and change the child support back to when you lost your job. I can only go back and change it back to the day you filed. So what'll happen is someone will have a good job, and their child support will be determined based on their income at that time, and then something happens and their income goes down. Maybe you don't even lose your job. Maybe you were getting a lot of overtime, and now you're not getting the overtime. It's not available anymore. What they do is they wait like a year to get behind a lot of money in their child support, and eventually when like their driver's license is taken away or they're threatened with contempt or something, then they file their petition to modify the child support. I can only go back to the date of the petition.
Can I say something on that with regards to cost? A lot of times we're having a consultation with the clients, and you might think, and this happens all the time, you might think $2,500 is a lot of money. Well, if you wait 5 years, it might be $30,000 or $40,000 that you're dealing with, plus having to retain an attorney, plus going through the whole process. So, and it's better to do it the right way to begin with than do it the wrong way, because you don't know how many times parents come and the wrong numbers were used because they didn't have an attorney, so the child support it's even calculated incorrectly. So, or another, it could go wrong. Another way is, let's say the mother gets a petition for domestic violence. So now you're dealing with, now she might have facts that warrant domestic violence, but to be truthful, some people might do it to get an upper hand.
No.
So it's like, so you might have had a good case, and I have this happen, like I just happened that recently. I told the father, you need to file a petition for paternity, you need to do this, you need to modify your child support because the kids have been living with you for the past years.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids have been living with me for 2 years, and they've been taking child support out of my pay.
So
you go,
yeah.
crazy. Why didn't you come in and file for modification?
So now you call an attorney But now you have, the reason why you're calling an attorney is because you have a domestic violence injunction. So now I have to deal with that, and now it looks like you're the one that's trying to take the kids away when the kids have been with you. It's just harder to defend. So do it the right way. And when there's children, there's people, the forms are available at the courthouse. They're $20. Just don't go without an attorney. That would be sometimes.
Let me just say,
Well, not any attorney.
you don't have to have a lawyer to file for paternity. You don't have to do that. The forms are available at no cost, or like $10 or $15 from the clerk. And there is on the third floor of the courthouse in Orange County, there is a family court support services office that will help you with the forms. They'll help set your hearings and do things like that. Now, they won't give you legal advice, but they'll at least get you into the courtroom and or in front of a magistrate. And I was used to doing it, and I'd get young fathers come in. So, look, you don't have to go. Just tell me what's going on. And they'd tell me, and I'd stop and ask a few questions and do the other. And then I'd listen, and I'd figure out what they need, and I'd fashion an order. I did that all the time. Yeah.
Some people fill out the forms and then they don't go to the final hearing, and they let the mother just go to the final.
But trust me, it's
That's because you listen to the fathers.
It's not just people who don't have money. I mean, I can recall a case I had with a young man who was an NFL player and was, let's just say, making a lot of money, paying a lot of his job support. Well, when he stopped becoming an NFL player, he never filed a petition for modification of his child support. By the time I get it, he's like, oh my goodness, he's like, $700,000 behind in child support. How can this be? Well, haven't been able to pay since I'm not playing. Man, you should have filed when you stopped. Yes.
Just a question, just going back to paternity. So, I'm a financial planner, and as you said, a lot of people don't get married anymore.
They don't.
And I have a lot of, domestic couples, woman, man, and they have children, and they've been together for years. So technically, no one has gotten any paternity or anything. We just feel like, well, those are my kids, I've been here.
Right.
But if they break up, I can do all I can do with budgets and life insurance and all those things, but for paternity and like powers of attorney and those types of things, that stuff still should be, just go forward with that. Get it in writing, get something legal.
My advice is get it legal while you're getting along.
Right.
Do it then. It's the easiest. It's the cheapest then. As opposed to after you've broken up, because then it just, it gets harder. It happens. People, even when you're married, there are times you're not always happy with it. Believe me, I've been married 30 years. There's times, you and your wife will have an argument or whatever, and it's always easier when you're getting along. So that's really my big piece of advice. In Florida, there are, and as long as we're talking about paternity and child support, we should talk about the difference between like these 4D cases and the court system in terms of paternity act. There is, in Florida, in all states, there is child support through the Department of Revenue, and there's child support through the courts, although it's in the same building. There are what we call Title 4D cases. They're Title 4D of the Social Security Act. Not that that means anything to you, but what it means is anytime the state provides any type of support for a child, subsidized daycare, free lunches, free medical care. You know, anytime the state provides any of that, it goes to the Department of Revenue. And the Department of Revenue has a grant from the federal government. And they pursue the fathers or the non-custodial parents. And, you know, 90% of the times it's fathers. They pursue them for child support. So you get pulled in front of, you get a notice, you get served, and you go, and they make you pay child support. And if you don't pay child support, ultimately they put you in jail for that. But they cannot address time sharing or visitation with children. They don't do that. Only the judges can do that in a paternity action. So if any of you have that or get pulled into that, the first thing you should do is file a paternity action, because that'll get you in front of a judge or a magistrate instead of a hearing officer. And then you can address everything instead of just addressing, because I get them, they're being ordered to pay child support. Well, what about visiting with my child? Well, we can't address that.
Well, and men get frustrated.
They get
because
frustrated.
They feel like they're not listening to you. And I don't think sometimes they take time to tell you. It's not that they don't want to listen to you, it's that they have no jurisdiction over those issues. So they don't explain it to you because you're in and you're out. They don't have to.
So if you get pulled into a 4D action, the first thing you should do is file a paternity action and get it out of the Department of Revenue and get it in with the judge, because the judge can address everything. Okay? Yes.
So, you guys may have already covered this, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
But when would you have to file a paternity action? And would you need to file one if you already signed the paternity papers at the beginning?
No, you need to file a paternity action anytime you have a child and you're not married to the mother.
Okay, so even if you've signed the documents
Right.
at the birth?
Even if you sign the documents, even if you sign the birth certificate, all that does is create a legal presumption. But it doesn't make you the legal father.
But it gets more
You-
complicated.
right.
There's a difference between a biological father and a legal father. And you
Right.
need to establish your rights as a legal father, because we can go into different areas.
Right.
where-
I'm talking about the legal father. If you want to be able to assert your rights
Right,
through the system,
right.
you need to be the legal father. And you do that with a paternity judgment.
Okay.
And let me just say this.
Yeah.
Most folks, when they hear paternity, they think the paternity cases are about trying to figure out who the father is. I've done maybe, I don't want to, I've done 40 or 50,000 paternity cases.
Right.
Okay? 99% of them, everyone agreed on who the parents are. That's not where the action is.
Right.
The action is, who makes what decisions? Where does the child sleep at night? What kind of support's going to be paid by whom? Those are the tough decisions, and better to get that paternity judgment than the Department of Revenue, right? Because you'll have rights, and better to get it when you're on good terms with the mother.
Right.
Okay, that's the time to do it. Just, if mom doesn't understand it, just say, listen, we're going to do this so this child has two legal parents. And here's the way I would put it to the mom. It's like, mom's going to say, well, why are you doing this? Why are you taking me into court? Just say, I need to be the legal father of this child, because what if, as I said earlier, what if tomorrow you're walking across the street and the drunken driver of a Coca-Cola truck hits you and kills you? Do you want your child to be able to sue and recover money for your death, your wrongful death?
Right. Okay.
Okay?
So-
it gives the child rights
Right.
and recognizes your legal relationship.
So a couple of things off of that.
Yeah.
I wish I actually had a document that I signed at the hospital. But I was under the assumption, because they made it say that this document makes me the legal father.
And most folks do.
Yeah, they say I'm a legal father, and then they say that if I choose to renege on that, I have 60 days to pretty much send it to the
No. You You're signing, acknowledging on the birth certificate is what you're doing. You're acknowledging that you're the father. That creates
That's just
a legal presumption in your favor, but it doesn't make you the legal father.
Even if you look at it that way, even if you weren't the real father, the real father, if you
Right.
signed that.
Biological father.
I mean, the
Right.
biological father,
Biological,
by signing that,
Right.
I mean, you can create a presumption.
Amazingly, there are some people that do that. I mean, more power to them. Have stepped in, say, listen, I'll sign the birth certificate. I want this baby to have
Right.
two parents, and I'll do that. You know, I admire that.
But
You know?
when you file a petition for paternity, that would be one of your bases. You're saying you want to establish your rights as a father, and in support thereof,
Right.
you attach as an exhibit, or your acknowledgement of
Right.
paternity, or whatever you signed.
So then how does that affect taxes, life insurance, benefits at your job? Because you have the biological portion, but according to the court and Department of Revenue, you're not the legal father, right?
Yeah.
So is my child entitled to the life insurance?
Well, that depends on your employer and their policy. I would say generally, if you sign the birth certificate and you're living together, you're not going to have any problem with filing taxes and getting life insurance and all that.
Okay.
The point of becoming the legal father is to have the ability to assert your rights if the relationship breaks down.
Right.
And, I'd say this, sometimes the relationship breaks down before the baby's born.
Yeah.
And in that instance, I always recommend, it's a little known thing, I always recommend that fathers register with what's called a putative father registry. Putative father
Which
registry.
if you were not here, and this is like, the law gets a little complicated, if you were not here, in things like this, for education purposes, you would not know this. Because before your child gets adopted or anything for any reason, let's say they were put up for adoption, the attorney would have to do things, and one of the things is search through a putative registry to make sure that there's nobody out there that is claiming to be the father.
Right. And the most common one I'll see is, let's say mom has, let's just say there's a mother who has a drug problem,
Right.
okay? And she's estranged from dad. She has the baby, and then she decides she's going to give the baby to her parents, like the grandparents.
Right.
And they come into court, to become the legal parents. They can't do that. If you file on the putative father registry, bam, your name is going to come up for this mother.
So no one
And
can-
then they're going to have to bring you into court
Right.
to do that, and they can't do it behind your back. So I always recommend that people do that if you're estranged from mom before the child is born. So, but
These forms are online, that what he's talking about, because it's with the vital statistics, you can Google Florida putative registry father, and it comes with the instructions.
Okay.
Can you
Yeah.
spell that?
Not hard.
What you're saying?
Putative?
Punitive.
Putative.
Punitive.
Yeah,
Okay.
Putative.
P-U-T-A.
T-I-V-E, putative.
P-U, because I wasn't sure.
Oh, that's-
T-I-V-E.
It's like punishment, I got it.
And,
All right. Okay.
P-U-T-A.
Yeah.
T-I-V.
Going back to the Department of Revenue, as far as the free healthcare and everything, I'm in the middle of a custody battle right now. Short wrap up 4 days after my wife got served papers from me. She called the police when I was already removed myself from the marital home and filed a injunction.
Shocking.
Yes.
I've never seen that.
Police right that I made, like I was going to severely beat her, but just 2 days before that, she told me to stay home with me and the kids, which I had on my phone and video and all that stuff. But got to the court date, she ended up voluntarily dismissed it, which I mean, against everything you said, there's so much fear. But now I got this joint stipulation in place where every other weekend I see the kids, because I'm trying to fight for shit custody, that's all
Right.
I wanted to go with. But I never understood how prior to her, me being home, she was able to get like this, all this free healthcare for the kids when I already had them on my job, medical insurance. Now, can she try to come at me like that with the Department of Revenue, though they
Yes.
my medical insurance?
Yes,
Because I'm trying to keep.
which is why you want to file a paternity action.
Oh, I did. The kids were born through the marriage of my oldest son.
Have you filed a paternity action?
That's a divorce.
Is it a divorce? Oh, it's divorce.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're already, my oldest son, I actually adopted him last year in July. I wasn't biological with dad, I was there for birth.
And listen, once you adopt them, it makes no difference. Your dad.
So now they that, but she can't do anything at the department. If I'm playing.
What stage are you at? Where, are you saying that you already have a final judgment?
No.
No.
I got mediation next month, but I severely got you.
So by the way, okay, caution for mediation.
Yeah.
You go to mediation, what, if you sign an agreement, and then the next day you wake up and
Go,
say,
what have I done?
oh, what have I done? That contract is binding.
Yeah.
So what I tell my clients, the best way to prepare them is read everything. I don't care if they feel like they're gonna close the courthouse because the deputies are.
Yeah, everyone's in a hurry.
Everyone's in a
Read what you
hurry.
sign.
Yeah, because once you sign, you're standing that you are voluntarily agreeing to that.
Right, so read what you sign. But I would say if you're in an active divorce, the chances of getting pulled into the Department of Revenue is unlikely. Okay, unlikely once you've got a divorce going. And let me just say, and even if she gets a new injunction, okay, that the injunction is brought under Chapter 741, and in the injunction statute, it specifically states that any subsequent order, any order signed after the injunction in a divorce or paternity case that is contrary to the injunction, that the divorce or paternity case controls. So even if she has an injunction that says you get every other weekend or once a month, if you get a divorce decree that says you get the children 50% of the time, that's what's going to control legally.
That will supersede, so
Yeah.
it's.
It's important to know and understand that the state of Florida does not do custody anymore. They don't have the concept. They did away with the concept of custody. Okay, what they do now is they legally recognize who the two parents are, and they come up with what they call a time-sharing plan. Because what they're trying to do is we used to have what was called primary physical custody. And the thing is that people, usually mothers, wanted to make more of it than it really was. They said, well, I have custody, I'll decide what school he goes to. I have custody, I'll decide, what sort of medical care, and that's really not the law. The law is that it should be shared. And we just determined the decisions are shared, and we determine what the time sharing, what the kids are.
So if you go to an attorney and they write on a piece of paper that you're gonna get the primary custody or something like that, then
You're
you run.
run away.
Because
The attorney doesn't know what they're doing.
family law attorneys will know the court decides parental rights and time sharing. The word
Right.
custody in the state of Florida
We don't-
is not
Yeah.
as of 2005.
Right. Any other questions that are nagging right now? All right,
I have a question.
yeah.
What about the opportunities for a father to get, say, 50-50 parental rights shared custodial rights?
Well, I used to say this. I mean, theoretically, I have no problem with it, but to me, as a judge, when I was doing it, time sharing was about, it's a shocking concept, but I always felt like it was what was in the best interest of the child. Because time sharing is primarily for the benefit of the child, not the parents. So when you say 50-50, I'd say, because some parents would come in and say, well, I want to do week on, week off. And you know what, I'd say, well, that would probably work for a 14 or, a 12-year-old. But no one in their right mind would do week on, week off for a 2-year-old. They would have all sorts of psychological problems, attachment disorders, because a 2-year-old has different emotional and physiological needs than a 12-year-old does. You know,
But by the way, people think that 50-50, it depends on what you think, because what Judge Evans is saying, it's important to look at the best interest of the child. You could almost get to a 50-50 in different ways,
Right.
like mediation. You could do Friday to Monday, and then you could do Wednesday, every Wednesday night, or every Wednesday and Thursday night. You can come up with all kinds of things that when you're in mediation.
Monday or Wednesday.
when I was a judge handling these, I call it the size of the snapshot. I didn't look at weeks. I didn't look at months. I looked at a year. And I'd say sometimes, listen, I get it. You know, dad's living on one side of town, mom's living on another side of town. The kid can't live his life in cars going back and forth every day. So I look at things like, okay, maybe the long weekend with dad, and you know, the summer with dad, or the holidays with dad, and I could usually get, you know, at the end of the year, you got 180 days on each side. If I could get it close to, if I could get dad up to like 160 or 165 days out of, you know, 365, I'd say that to me was pretty much 50-50. They look at it and go, well, that's, you know, I'm only getting this. Well, yeah, but you're getting the whole summer, and you're getting this, and you're getting that. You got to look at sort of that picture.
You gotta see which work with your schedule. Like I've had parents, like for example, and I had a mother say, well, I want the majority of the time. She works from 3 p.m. to 11. You both might be the greatest parents, but in this case, you're at work. You're not getting the child. I mean, it's what's in the best interest of the child. But you got to think about these things before you sign any agreements or anything. What's in the best interest of the child? Look at both your schedule, because what kind of argument, and this is what always kills me, like when one of the parties agrees to like, oh, you can have 2 overnights, and then goes into court and say he's a bad father. So he's a bad father. He's a good father for 2 overnights, but
He's a bad father for the rest, yeah.
you see what I'm saying? So you don't focus on yourselves, focus on your child. You know, is there any sports? What's your work schedules like? Compare that instead of focusing on like, I'm the better parent.
Sometimes grandparents can be a help. I always said, in every case, grandparents are one of 2 things. They're either part of the problem or they're part of the solution. They're always one or the other. And, you know, so you got to kind of look at that and figure out which one they're going to be as to whether you're going to use them or not. If they're part of the problem and you want to keep them out of the coat, they'll only make it worse. They'll only complicate it. You know? Yes?
What are some of the consequences for seeing the child outside of agreed upon timeshares?
Oh, what are the consequences of seeing the child outside of an agreed parenting time sharing?
Well, you know, it's an amazing concept. Because I was looking around for the flag, I used to always look at the flag and I go, it's the United States of America. You know? And in America, hopefully as long as I'm alive, if the 2 parents agree on, you know, altering it, I really don't care what the court order says.
Right.
The court order is there for the default if you don't agree.
Okay.
But stuff happens. You know, family reunions happen. Relatives die. People get sick. Kids get sick. Stuff happens. And when a relationship breaks down, the first casualty is trust. They don't trust each other. And I, you know, in the cases that I saw get better, it would be like something happened. You know, mom's job or her parent or relative died or something. Can you step in and help? And you step in and help.
Right.
You know, she might remember that. She might not. But she might remember that and say, you know, that way when you ask for something, say, you know, it's, you know, if you can restore the trust, and I get it. You know, they're not necessarily going to hold hands walking into the sunset together, but and it becomes complicated when you have this sort of blended families, where you have a mother with 2 children with 2 different fathers. that really gets complicated.
However, if you do not agree on that, the person who is receiving child support could do a supplemental petition to modify child support because the person's not exercising their time sharing and child support was calculated with you having substantial overnight.
Does everyone here understand how child support is calculated? It works? Right? Let me I'll describe it basically. In chapter 61, specifically 61.30, there is a table.
Is this only in Florida, what you're talking
This is
about
in
right
Florida.
now? Okay.
Okay? And what they do is the court figures out the net earnings of the father and the net earnings of the mother. Now, what's net earnings? Net earnings is gross earnings minus a few things like taxes, health care, mandatory
Mandatory
retirement. All right? And sort of, if you're operating a lawn care business, and your income total income's $3,000 a month, you're allowed to deduct from that the expenses to operate that business. If you're spending $1,000 a month keeping your equipment up and paying for gas and your truck and all, your earnings are $2,000 minus the taxes and the like. But you take the two parents' earnings, you add them together, you go to this table that's created by the legislature, and let's say, and I know this one from heart because when you've done 50,000 of these, let's say the combined earnings is $3,000 a month. The presumptive child support for that is going to be $1,001. Okay? And let's say out of that $3,000, Dad makes $2,000 a month and Mom makes $1,000 a month. That means Dad is going to owe 2/3 of that $1,001. His presumptive child support will be $666 a month. Now, that changes depending on how many overnights you have with your child. Once you get 20% or more of the overnights with your child, that goes into the formula and then it reduces the amount of child support you owe. So it's a sort of fluid thing depending on how many overnights have been ordered.
And by the way, with overnights, that's one important difference between the Department of Revenue and time sharing. And that's why we keep saying if you have a child out of marriage, you should go and do it in the circuit court and file a petition for paternity. Because the Department of Revenue, that sliding scale that
They don't do it.
They don't, that number with regards to time sharing, they cannot use it.
Right, so
That's
even if that child's sleeping with you 50% of the time, the Department of Revenue is going to order you to pay the full child support.
Oh, wow.
Okay? So that's why you will file a paternity action and get it into circuit court, because they will do that. Okay? So it's simply child support is a mathematical formula. That's all it is. And I have people who go, well, that's too much. And I'd say, well, call your legislator, because I'm not making it up. They're the ones that make it up.
Or the best way with mistakes. People think that, okay, I'll give her, I don't want to pay child support, so the child can stay with you most of the time. Well, guess what? The less time sharing, you probably end up, you're supposed to pay more. But you have this conceived notion that you can negotiate it, and just if they have all the time sharing, your child support is going to go down.
Yeah, it's the amount of time sharing ordered in the court order that counts in terms of calculating the child support. Yes.
So I have another example of a couple that they are married, but the husband has children from the previous marriage, and there is no order, child support order. He just gives her whatever. So he'll give her a certain amount a month, and if the kids need anything, they just call him. But the new wife, because we're doing a financial plan now, wants some specific numbers, and she wants to say, okay, this is how much we can send, and he's just kind of very nonchalant about it. Is there such thing as saving receipts or saving money orders or those things?
It is.
I should
Let me
be
tell you
telling them.
something. You should be telling
That's one of the
them.
biggest mistakes.
It is the third biggest mistake I see is that the guys who are just, giving money and doing things, not keeping track of it. So when she inevitably files for the back child support, you go, well, I've been paying her, $500 a month for the last 6 years. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. And what, a lot of folks that I dealt with don't have bank accounts. So what they do is they go down and get money orders. Once you bought that, there's no way you can prove that she got it with a check, my friend. You can prove because she's got to sign the back of the cash, and you have the banks keep records. Yeah, he has to keep records, or he exposes himself to a tremendous amount of liability.
They're doing no longer good now. They're happy now. But I'm like, listen,
It'll
you're
keep
married.
track.
But this is the time that we're saying.
Keep track of it.
Back in the day, it used to be checks, money orders, or whatever. If you have a bank account, it used to be money orders or cashier's check. But you want just do it from your bank because you can always call your bank and ask for the last 5 years of.
And keep the records. Keep the records. They will save you. And not only that. Not only that. If the relationship breaks down, and you're going into court. You're going in front of a judge. With me, when I get a young man in, and he can bring me in a box of receipts, and I see that even when he wasn't court ordered, he's been providing support. I look at him in a different light. I go, here's someone who cares about his child. Here's someone who's trying to do the right thing. And listen, I get it. I get people, and they might maybe not doing the right legal thing. But at the end of the day, as a judge, I always try to do the right thing. And if I got someone who's out there trying to do the right thing, and I kind of go out of my way to try to help them. And let me tell you, anyone who tells you that the judges don't have latitude, is kidding themselves.
Right.
Because they do. And every time someone comes in, I'm sizing them up. I am because everyone's different. Everyone's different.
With regards to the judge, one of the mistakes that men do is they'll say, "Well, I have the receipts." Well, the day of the hearing is the day that you have to provide the receipts, because a lot of people say, "Well, I can get them."
Yeah.
And then you get frustrated because the court didn't listen to you. Well, if it was set for hearing, that's when you need to get the receipts, not after the hearing.
My favorite one is they hand you a business card of someone. I'm the judge in the case. Here, judge, you call that person and they'll tell you. Not only am I not going to do that, I can't do that. Our system of justice only allows the judge to receive evidence in the courtroom with both people present. Yes.
A question like this. That's obviously after the injunction. Trust was completely lost. So I'm like, all right, she's gonna do whatever she can do, try to keep me away from these kids, just because the motive is money. I've been there for my kids for 3.5 years. I was working 7 days a week to provide for my family. And I quit my part-time job a few months before I filed because I knew that I want to be around my kids, and I can't say I want share the custody. I'm working 7 days a week. But since I've been out of the house, I've got a daily planner. I've been noting down everything.
You're organized.
When I'm with the kids, I can keep it on my receipts. So, from a judge perspective, I bring all that in.
Yeah, you're organized.
How does that look? Like from your perspective as a judge, and I bring all that she's trying to fight against and all this stuff.
To me, that's good stuff. Yeah, you're organized. And because, sometimes, as a judge, it was frustrating because I know someone's lying to me. Judge, I've been giving her $300 a month for the last 3 years. No, he hasn't. Hasn't given me a penny. Yes, I have. Don't answer.
So,
You know?
I've been from my personal trauma.
You know, so then at that point, you know, give me something that shows me she's a liar. If you can show me in one thing that she's a liar, I'll think maybe she's lying in the rest of this stuff.
By the way, breathe, like for example, I had a young father, and when he went to court, because the judges, like he said, he's going to size you up, right? But my particular client, I felt like I had to talk to him like he was my son, because he looked really mad and angry. But what the court didn't see was that he was crying before we went in there, telling me all this. But when he went in there, he was already so guarded that unless you explain that to the court, they're just going to see an angry person. So breathe
Yeah.
and present your case.
Let me ask you a question. Do you own one of these flat things that goes around your neck? Okay, wear it into the courtroom.
When I went to for that injunction hearing, I was suited
Okay.
up with the
Right.
I was clean.
I can't tell you that. I have people come in, you know, with a pair of torn shorts and torn t-shirt coming in, and you just go, really? Like, this is how this person demonstrates how important it is to me. He's going to show up 5 minutes late, and he's going to come in like he's, you know, ready for a game of pickup basketball. Or he comes in, I mean, someone who comes in with a tie and a shirt, God, used to speak volumes to me. And the reason is, it's so rare that you stick out like a shining penny. You ever had a pocket full of change, you have a brand new penny? You look at it, you just naturally spot that brand new penny. The guy in the courtroom with a tie on is just like that. Even when I was on the criminal bench, the folks that would come in with a tie, and I'm telling you, it saved them so much time. You know, because they wear a tie. I mean, I think back and I think, I break for lunch and I go, you know, that tie saved him 3 months.
No, because it's respect to the court. I mean, you're
In the
showing
system.
respect in the system.
Yeah.
But another thing as far as
Yeah.
respect, when I went to the injunction, like, she was speaking to the judge, and he was just the approach, I felt like, I could see the judge was like, getting shifted against her, like, you know, the way she was answering, because when the judge would ask me questions, I always
She
respond
would be
like,
evasive.
yeah, and I always respond too, like, you know, I ended everything I said, Your Honor, you know, yes, Your Honor, you know, no,
Right.
Your Honor, and just gave that respect.
Exactly.
I mean, I grew up like that, man, about respect, and that's what I feel like, especially with a lot
You
of
know,
people don't.
My philosophy was I treated everyone with respect until they demonstrated otherwise. They came in, they didn't treat me with any respect. I treated them back exactly the same way. But yeah. So what you're saying is breathe, listen. You know, the most powerful tool you have in a courtroom is that 6 inches right between your ears. Right there. People get worked up and they can't, they're so worked up they can't listen. It's like, all right, sir, well, you know, how much money do you make, you know, in a week? Well, she won't let me visit with the kids. All right, but how much money do you make in a week? Well, you know, she flattened my tire, you know, it's like, I'm about the fourth one. Hello! You know, because I'm trying to do my job too. And I'll get to the flat tire, you know. But first I'm trying to figure out what the parameters are. And, you know, I think most of the judges and the magistrates are pretty diligent in trying to do the right thing. What other questions? You
I have
gotta
a
ask.
question. I came in late and you mentioned that there's 3 top mistakes. I missed the first 2 because I was.
Okay, the first top mistake is
Coming in late.
yeah, no. The top mistake is fathers who are not married to the mothers of their children who don't file paternity actions. File paternity actions, even if you're on good terms.
And that's the best time, when you're in good terms.
When you're on good terms is the best time to file it. Because then it goes through like that. Second biggest mistake is fathers who have child support orders and their financial situation changes and they don't file a modification. Right, because the judge can only go back to the date of filing. They'll wait a year that they file it. And meanwhile, the child support arrearage is just stacking up. And they, you know, like they don't, I get so many fathers that wouldn't come in and file until their driver's license got suspended. Now they can't work, you know. I can't work, I don't have drive, you know, come in, judge, please, I need it, you know. They come in to me, they file like an emergency motion or motion to reinstate your driver's license. And I'd say, oh, sir, you are, you know, you're $4,500 behind in your child support. Well, Judge, I lost my job, you know, and I was out of work for 9 months, and I've got this new job that pays me half what I used to, and I've been, you know, trying to pay, and I said, why haven't you filed a modification? Now, here's another tip I'm going to give you that's golden. In terms of, anyone ever been involved in a contempt proceeding for child support? All right. Well, some of them want to, you know, there are only 2 debts in the United States you could be put in jail for not paying. Taxes and child support or alimony. Okay? That's it. Otherwise, all they can do is get a judgment against you. I used people come in, friends who had these, you know, like a big judgment against them. I'd say, well, they can't eat you. You know? They can't, all they can do is put a lien on property or do stuff like that, but they can't put you in jail. So, if you have a child support obligation and you find that for whatever reason, that week or that month, you can't pay what you're supposed to pay something. I get dads who I would look back and they might be way behind, but I look like whatever their cycle was, and they, you know, like, see, they're supposed to be paying like $50 a week, and I'd see $22 and $17 and $9 and, you know, 18 odd amounts, but they always pay something. It spoke volumes to me. It said, look, here's someone who's trying, you can't do it. And I'd say, look, you need to catch this up, let's talk about it. But I never in 20 years, I never put someone like that in jail, ever.
But if you can't, and you don't pay anything, and you come in with a nice watch.
Right. Then I get a guy who come in.
You should have pawned it.
Yeah, a guy who come in, you know, and it was like nothing for this long period. And I started, well, how'd you live? Do you have a car? Where'd you live? How do you eat? You know, all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, and I'd see magically those needs got met, but not a dime got paid. There's a guy I'm putting in jail because, you know, he needs to learn a lesson about priorities. Because it's all about priorities. Yeah, in terms of the watch, I'll tell you this story. It goes as, here's never, ever, ever wear a $7,000 watch to a child support enforcement hearing. Because I'm at this hearing, and I don't own really expensive, I just got this new watch. It's hooked to my phone. It's a new iWatch, so I'm still learning to use it, but it's like $300. It's the most expensive watch I've ever owned. But I know good watches. I'm sitting there and I watch this guy, and I knew he had an 18-karat tag viewer. I knew this watch, and I said, you know, what's? Oh, you know, times are bad. I have no money, no income. Blah. I go, what's that on your wrist? He goes, this. He goes, it's a watch. Oh, what kind of watch is that? He goes, it's a TAG watch. Oh. Now he's under oath. I said, what's it worth? And he looked me right in the eye and he said, $400.
Wow.
So I said, okay, take it off, give it to her. I'm directing the clerk to give you $400 credit towards your child support.
Oh no, 7,000.
And I saw his eyes. His eyes were going. his eyes are doing this. He'll go everywhere. And he goes, right now? Yes, deputy. And I had the deputy take it off his wrist and give it to her. And I gave him $400 credit for it. Thank you. Try appealing that. He's testified under oath. It's worth $400. The moral of that is, don't wear a $7,000 watch in the court, and don't lie to the judge, because he's not stupid. Yeah, yeah. Or another one, I actually had someone, and the last war story, we'll get back to your questions, just a little humor, a guy who came in on, he had a lot of back alimony. And I came in, business, and it was like, let me just say, tens of thousands of dollars that he owed. A lot of them. And bad business is bad, times are bad, blah, blah, blah. But the night before, I'd been channel surfing, I watched Channel 9, and I saw this guy on TV, and he was being interviewed. He was negotiating with trying to buy the Orlando Magic. He's in my courtroom. So I bring his lawyer up, and I said to his lawyer, is this the guy I saw on Channel 9 last night interviewed about possibly buying the Orlando Magic, putting together a consortium to buy them? I don't know, Judge. Can you take a break? He goes back, talks to his client, and says that my client will write a check for whatever the amount is. It's my way of saying the next thing out of my mouth was going to be, this guy's going to jail. Because he had the ability to pay. Because the legal standard in child support, putting someone in jail, is do they have the ability to pay? And maybe not the whole amount. What do they have the ability to pay? And I've made examples of some people, just like the guy who pays nothing. Well, sir, I'm finding that you have the ability to pay $1, and I'm sending you to Orange County Jail. You can purge out with $1, but he still spends the day locked up, going through process into jail, going through all of that to pay his $1. And that's my way of saying, pay something. So my advice is pay something. Yeah. And it means something. Everything you do, how you carry yourself, everything you do in your life means something. You know? You are, have you ever heard of actions speak louder than words? You are what you do. So, talk is cheap, but you are what you do. So, paying something always meant something to me. And the guy who was visiting, the guy who kept, all of that means something. Yeah. Just don't go in angry. You might be angry, but I don't think anger clouds the mind. Every time I'm angry and I do something, I usually do something I regret. I go back and I go, I'd have done that differently, Yes,
Okay,
ma'am?
two things. What happens when that gentleman gets put in jail for not paying? Does it stop? Does it keep going while they're locked up?
Oh, it keeps adding up. Yeah. The way it works is, once I make a finding that they have the legal ability to pay that, I remand them in jail. Now, I can't put them in jail for more than 180 days, but that doesn't mean that all they're going to spend is 180 days. Okay? Once I make that finding, I've got to bring them back. And I've only had to do this like twice in 20 years. They'd spend 170 days in, I'd bring them back. Well, sir, I'm finding you still have the ability to pay it, I'm giving you another 180 days. Or as I had one gentleman, I looked at him, and he said, this guy looked at me, and he said, well, if I don't pay, how long do I have to stay in jail? And I looked him right in the eye, and I said, the rest of your life. And I saw his shoulders slump. And he looked at the deputy, and the deputy went like that. And he paid that day. He was just so angry. He was willing to do jail, but that's not the way it works. It's civil contempt, so it's a coercive system. The way it works is, theoretically, you have the key to your own cell door. Anytime you pay that, you open your cell door and you get out. And amazingly, it works. In 20 years, I only had 2 people that spent more than,
Because they're not
90 days in
asking you
jail.
to purge that amount, the judge is not asking you to pay the whole thing. They're asking you for something.
yeah,
So
sometimes.
apparently these 2 people that he's talking about, they didn't want to pay anything.
Right.
Like, you know, so
Usually
if
the-
you're lying to the court will see it. Obviously, if you're homeless and something, it's different.
I might have an arrearage of $6,000-7,000, but also have a purge of like 1,000. You know, that's just my way of saying you gotta get it paid. And amazingly, they because jail is a crappy place. The food is crappy. It's not a good place.
Okay, the other part was, how do you handle a situation where the guy's paying for different needs for the child, buying clothes, whatever, but putting time in, but they get put on child support and the woman says, oh, he ain't doing nothing for the baby, and then the guy comes to court with all these receipts showing that he's been diligent in trying to do something for the child. How do you handle that?
It was always very difficult for me because they come in with receipts and she'd say, my child never got this. Yeah, he's got these receipts, but not for my baby. So, you know,
Let's just say hypothetically, one
it
is-
becomes very problematic.
I would say,
Pay through the court system,
Okay.
and that's your obligation. It's easy to quantify. We do things in money, not in barter. You know, well, I gave her 2 formulas of baby formula. All right. Well, I might, as a judge, if that comes to me, I might, if he's got a receipt, I might give him credit for that once. But I'm going to tell him, I'm not giving you credit for that again. Pay your money. You know, let her buy the baby formula. And, well, she's not buying the baby formula. Then call Children and Families, or come back to me and prove it. You know.
So just really quick, because I get your answer, I just know several situations where this happened.
It happens all the time.
Fortunately, this person had also plane tickets showing that the child's name is on the plane ticket, which supported all the other stuff. But I was just curious, how does the court system handle that when women abuse the system and try to get these guys tangled up over child support?
Well, you know, there's a saying in family court. How do you know when people are lying to you? Their lips are moving. And it's not like they're lying. It's like everyone has their own version of the facts, and they tell it to themselves so often, working themselves up to the hearing. By the time they get to the hearing, they actually believe what they're telling you is the truth. When the fact of the matter is, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. Always, you know.
with regards to the receipts, it can be good. Legally, you can argue both ways because I've defended people on both sides. So, with regards to the receipts, it could be good for the father because he can show that he's making payments. However, in some instances, the argument would be for the other person because the father, I'm going to use the father because that's what makes me think of the case, will say, well, I chose to buy the child clothes or something. It's not for the father to decide what should be bought, because sometimes you can get controlling and try to figure out what should be bought. No, you pay the child support the way it was calculated. If you want to buy something extra, you buy it. But yeah, you don't just come with receipts and always get credit for it. So in some instances, you do get credit for it, but there's always another side and another argument that the other parent is just choosing on what the money should be spent instead of giving the child support how it's supposed to be paid.
Okay, this is based on a description of what should be purchased per
Like, for
the
example-
child support order, or?
No, for example, child support is calculated. Say you have
All
to
we
get
deal with in
$400.
child support orders is money.
You deal with the money. So child support, you get $400. You're supposed to get $400 a month from the father. Father doesn't give you $400, and you say, "Where's my $400?" And he'll say, "Well, I bought clothes, and I paid for their basketball team."
Yeah.
And then he brings the receipt. Well, you don't get to do that either. Okay. So,
Right,
I mean,
that's-
there's
yeah.
legal arguments. If it would be easy, we wouldn't be here if it was all black and white.
Yeah.
There's legal arguments.
My
not
general
to-
Just pay the money.
keep pay the
Yeah,
money,
just
keep it
paying
in
how it's
monetary units.
ordered under the law
And pay it in such a way that you can prove that it's been paid.
for child support.
But I frankly like paying it, even though there is a service charge, I like paying it through the central depository because they keep records, you know?
You don't have to worry about it.
And you don't have to worry about it. So when she says, I didn't get paid, I look them up in the eye and say, as far as I'm concerned, if the child support record shows he's paid it, he's paid it. Then you prove you didn't get it. Because, you know, they're pretty comprehensive.
So the child support, the way it's structured now, since there's no longer a primary custodian, right? It's kind of two parents paying into a pot.
Right.
So let's say I'm paying 600, she's paying 200.
We offset them and then you wind up only paying 400.
Okay, right. So I'm paying 400, right? But nonetheless, we're both contributing to this
Right.
pot.
Yes.
So she's receiving the check. What happens if she's not paying?
Well, she's paying by virtue of taking care of the child.
Okay.
Okay,
So
you don't have both people paying
Only
in the
one
system.
person.
We offset them against each other,
gotcha.
okay?
Okay, so,
So-
she's not paying into it, and I'm paying into it. It's
Right, and it's
I pay into
it can be a fluid thing. I mean, I've had them where, you know, just because of earnings, I've had it tip over where suddenly mom is paying, and I've had mothers just go out of their minds, like I set them on fire. I'm paying, what do you mean I'm paying? I don't pay, I'm the mother. No. Sometimes mothers pay. And every time I did it, it was like I set them on fire. Yes, sir, at the end.
Good evening. Okay, I'm on disability,
Okay,
and I lost my sight in 2005.
Okay.
So I went down to Social Security, and the lady told me, take out a check for each one of your children, just in case you get a divorce. Your Social Security payment will be in lieu of your child support. Well, fast forward 6 years later, I go through a divorce, and they award her child support, and all the time she been getting the disability checks. So now I'm paying child support and disability, and I'm living on pennies.
so I would say this is the way it works, okay? In Florida, this is a Florida case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If the children are receiving a disability payment because of your disability,
Yes, sir.
that counts as if you are paying it in child support,
Right.
okay? Now, it is possible that you could owe money in addition to that if the calculations of the child support guidelines is higher than the actual disability payment. Now, I would say in the vast majority of the cases, the disability payment completely takes care of the child support obligation.
Right.
But I've had some disabled parents who have other income, and that income counts as income. And when you calculate, let's say that the child's getting $425 a month in disability payments, okay, but the child support obligation is $500.
Right.
That would mean it owes $75 a month.
Right.
And that's the way. So if you do not have that, then that's legal error, and you should appeal that, because the Court of Appeals will straighten it out.
Now, I've been doing that, but thank God, I've been ringing the bell for 2.5 years. And last month, I rung the bell so much that they did a review and found out that my disability was more than the child support.
There you
So
go.
now, I'm out of $25,000 because they was holding the first 7 months, they was holding the child support, and then they started charging me.
So now they owe you money back.
Right, that's why I'm here. I want to know what can I do now? Because before, when I wasn't paying,
I got
I'm getting threatening letters,
Yeah,
I lock you up. I'm like, I'm blind.
I
I'm
got
gonna
it.
take your license. I can't drive no way. I'm gonna mess up your credit. I lost everything when I lost my sight.
I got it. It's problem. Let me just say this. The most efficient,
But the thing of it is, keep in mind, he'd never been to court, period.
okay, all right, the most efficient thing that government does is collect child support. I mean, if they ran government like they collect child support, we'd be living in the land of milk and honey. That is the truth. I mean, when I was administrative judge, I looked at, we had 3 child support enforcement hearing officers, okay? For these, what I talked about, the 40 cases were, and those 3 child support hearing officers collected $72 million a year. So they have very efficient ways. So in terms of getting the money back, it's problematic. You're not without rights. However, your rights in collecting it back from her are going to be in the nature of a civil judgment. So you will only be able to collect from her what she has, or what sort of income. You can get writs of garnishment, you can get judgments against, but you're never going to have the same sort of ammunition they had against you. You're not going to be able to put her in jail if she doesn't pay you back. But yes,
But I want garnishment.
you absolutely have a right to collect that money back. You absolutely do.
So how do I go about that?
Well,
Do I get a lawyer?
you would get a lawyer. You would get a lawyer who knew what they were doing.
Yeah, it's not a simple.
That is not a simple thing, but yes, you would get a lawyer, you would get a family lawyer who knows what they're doing. Okay?
I have documents and everything.
Yeah, you have rights and you could get that back, but only to the extent she has the ability to pay.
Well, she's working everything collection.
But it sounds like a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
Right, well, so, it'll take a while to collect it. And people have a funny thing of trying to avoid paying judgments. It's been my experience, right? Yeah, but, it happens, and trust me, it happens. One of the worst cases I ever saw was a guy who had gotten his tax return and gotten a big chunk of money. I think it was like $6,000, and decided he was going to take that money and pay it towards his back child support. So he paid it to the Department of Revenue, but he put the wrong case number down. So they gave the money to someone else. And she immediately spent it, of course. And he said, how do I get that money back? You don't.
That's why I'm, see, that's not.
You gotta find a way.
And the way they looked at it is, he put the wrong case number down. And that was tragic. I did what I could with that, but that was a tough case. So, keep your wits about you. But any other questions? Yes?
How far in arrears with alimony before you consider incarceration?
With me,
Pretty willful and.
I get them where people come in, literally.
You gotta pay, the same thing for the child support, you have to pay something.
I have
Because
people,
really, the first
It's saying they're
thing.
paying something.
Yeah.
I have people who finally intent and said it was 20 days late last month. I want him in jail. Different judges are different.
Right.
For me, it's someone, whatever the obligation